Hi, so my name is Lucy. I'm VP People for Insify, and today we're going to have a conversation about how we build culture at Insify, together with the founder of Insify, Koen. First question, how did Insify start?
The inspiration came from my previous business. We were not able to get insured online as a small business. We tried to call an insurance company. They said, hey, with small customers like you, we don't deal directly. So we have to go via an intermediary. We did. That was very much a pen and paper process. It took several months to get our business insured. And I didn't think much of it until after a few years. One morning I walked into our office, our brand new office, and we realized there had been a burglary. 10 laptops were gone, about 20,000 euros worth of damage. For us as entrepreneurs, a lot of money. But fortunately, we had insured our business. And I handed in a claim with our insurer. They got back to us a few weeks later and said, we're not going to pay out this claim because you have just moved into a new office. You have not yet updated your insurance policy, and as such, there's no coverage on the new location. What I now know about insurance is that if you take that insurer to court, a judge will rule in favor of the company. Why? They're not worse off in the new location. We had been a loyal customer. There's no reason to reject that claim, really. I didn't know that, so I had to go back to my investors, friends, family, fools, and explain that we had lost 20,000 euros of their life savings that they had entrusted us with. So I felt deeply responsible, and my friends and family, they felt like fools rather than very sophisticated investors. So on the spectrum of a very happy customer to a not so happy customer, I was definitely on the not so happy end. But I didn't churn because I didn't know where else to go. I had not seen that intermediary after the initial sale. And so, I just kind of accepted it. And a few months later, I realized how strange that was. So there was a very difficult sign up. Then I'm a loyal customer for years. I don't get anything. Then I actually need the service that I've been paying for. I still don't get it. And instead of churning, I stay a loyal customer. So there are not a lot of sectors you can get away with such a bad customer experience and still be a large sector. So I figured if I'm ever going to start a new company, it has to be in insurance because there's so much that can be improved in this sector. And so when we ended up selling Blue Mon, I got the opportunity to start fresh again, and that became Insify.
Yeah. So you sold Blue Mon together with your two co-founders. Yeah. How did you decide to start a new business? Because I can imagine there are also other things you could have done.
Yeah, so I think the three of us, we all did our reflection. And my two co-founders at the time decided they wanted to break or retire. One of them moved to Bali. He's just surfing every day now. And I did that same reflection. And I decided to start an insurance company. And I think what came up in my reflection is that I just really enjoy being in this arena of trying something really challenging, working with smart and ambitious people on something that is hard. And I find it succeeding at something that is really hard and difficult together with a team. That feels very meaningful to me. So when I did that reflection, I thought, I'm going to go back into the arena and build something new. And the experience I had with Blue Mon with my own insurance, to me, it felt like, hey, there's really something broken in the sector. And we experienced that as Insify as well, because even though we are disrupting the space, we're also still relying on insurance companies to provide us with capacity. So we do everything a normal insurance company does, except for taking the risk. So we have the same experience of needing to work with these insurance companies, sometimes being dependent on them. And that is extremely hard work. We really need to fight every day to make sure we can deliver value to our customers in the way that is aligned with our shared values. And so that takes the people that work at Insify, it takes a lot of grit, passion, perseverance, hard work. We'll get a lot of no's from our partners. No, we can't do that. No, we can't pay out that claim. No, we are not able to insure these customers because they are too risky. Or no, we can't insure these customers because they have a pre-existing medical condition. And so we put in a lot of dedication and a lot of effort to make sure we get to a yes. And the type of people that thrive at Insify are the type of people that can get no every single time, but still continue until they get to a yes. Which also makes me wonder, actually, why did you want to join such an intense place?
Yeah, good question. When I applied for Insify, I think back then I was working within startups for 15 years already, and I think the last 7 years within fintech. I also realized a lot of companies in fintech are focused on making people who are pretty well off just a little bit more well off. And I couldn't really relate to that anymore. So I felt still want to work in fintech, because what I really like about the space is that we make very complex matter very simple. And Insify for me was a place where we actually got to work for normal people, let's say. And for me that comes really close because my dad has also been an entrepreneur for all his life. He did many things, but never worked for a boss. So for me, that came very close. So for me, Insify felt like a place, okay, I can work on something that is meaningful and comes very close to me. I think another reason, like I said, I was working in HR for 15 years. I was building people functions, building companies. But what I also realized is that, especially I think about 6-7 years ago, we were also building companies, we were growing like crazy, money was free, everything was amazing. And I think me as a head of people, I really was very tempted to make culture a very inclusive place, because you want to hire as many people as fast as possible. So we were, one of my previous companies I was working for, at one point we were hiring 30 people every month, and we were still a small company. And we did that for a year. We tripled size, and on a Friday afternoon we were having drinks, and I was talking to our most recent joint engineer, and I asked him, hey, why did you join? And he basically said, yeah, it's good money. And I think that for me was the moment where I realized, wow, culture eroded. I joined that company when the company was with 25 people, first people person, let's say. Culture was really strong. Everyone knew each other really well. Everyone was fully in it. And then, 2 years later, I noticed, hey, where did the culture go? And I realized, I think, especially in HR, it's almost easier to be inclusive and to welcome everyone, but it's actually a lot harder to be exclusive and meaningfully build a culture that you actually mean to build.
So you mentioned now to a certain degree, actually, culture is not inclusive, but rather exclusive.
Yeah.
So can we unpack that a little bit, what that means for you?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to the values, of course. I think if you start a company, especially, I think you've been in that position, right? You start a company with two friends. I think you share the same values, also often the reason why people start companies together. And I think at some point you need to get better in kind of verbalizing those values, being clear, hey, what are these values exactly? What do we hold close? What is important for us? And I think that is, for me, very exciting phase, because then culture becomes very specific. But then if you're growing, it's really important to keep close to these values. And it doesn't mean that some people cannot join, but I think you have to be really selective on who joins that company. And you have to be very clear on these values and hire on those values. And the reality is everyone has different values. So in that sense, the culture becomes exclusive, because you're basically saying, hey, people that fit those values we welcome, and people that don't fit the values, they should better look out for another company with different values. So in that sense, I think culture then is exclusive and should stay exclusive. Because if you have shared values, then in the end you can be whoever you want to be in a company, right?
Hey, let's backtrack a little bit, because I think there's something that's a bit implicit in what you're sharing, which is you said I've been in startups in people roles for the last 15 years. So if you look back and then now look at and reflect on Insify, what is different in the environment that you're in now compared to the environments you've seen previously?
I think I've also been in companies where we're pretty clear about values. And we all, a number of times I created kind of value and mission and vision statements and put it on our website. I think that companies do pretty well, especially startup scale-ups. But I think the hard part comes in making these decisions. And I think what I saw at Insify, even in my own recruitment process, I also realized, hey, people are really serious about this. And that's something I really realized with Insify. And I felt like, hey, it feels like the learnings I got from my experience with these startups and scale-ups, these learnings very much align with how you want to build a company, but also how the leadership team is set up and how all the people work at Insify. So I saw this intensity, I saw this commitment, and I understood, hey, this is a bunch of people that make this conscious choice. So for me, that is a huge difference and really, really inspiring, actually. When you started building Insify, what company did you decide to build?
Yeah, it comes back to the reflection that I did. So what I enjoy is working with smart and ambitious people on really difficult problems. Because I feel that if you work on something that is really challenging and difficult to achieve, succeeding at it is all the more meaningful. And I think what is interesting about smart and ambitious people, if you think about what is the environment that they thrive in, it's often working with other smart and ambitious people. Also, if you think about it, for example, like the university group project, whereby you have two people that are, really driven, and you have three people taking the back seat. I think that's killing for talent. You want to have 5 people around the table that are really all in to solve a difficult problem. So for me, it was very important to create that environment whereby we have those. In every project that we do, we have those people around the table that really are all in to solve the problem that they're working on.
But is it only about smart and ambitious? Because I think you've also worked in investment banking, for example. I think there's a lot of smart and ambitious people. Why did you not stay there?
Yeah, there were multiple reasons for not staying there. One of them is that in investment banking, you can look up and then you can see your life playing out 3, 6, 9, 12 years ahead. And to be honest, when I did that myself, me 9 years down the line, down the journey, did not feel like a very inspiring person. One other thing, more on a cultural level, that stood out to me. So people work very hard in investment banking, and there are indeed a lot of smart people. And I used to work on Canary Wharf, and I would take the metro, and every morning, 9 o'clock, the doors open, people flow out in the Canary Wharf station, and you just hear footsteps on the marble, but you don't hear anyone talking, you don't see anybody smiling. And then I realized this is not an environment where people are genuinely happy or really enjoying themselves. They're working on difficult stuff, but are they having fun? No. And I think, and that's also unique to, I think, more these startup environments, is that you get to work on these difficult problems, but you can also have fun at it while doing it. And I think because you work intensely together, colleagues become friends, you really get to know each other's. You really get to know each other's peculiarities, each other's quirks. You get to make a little bit of fun out of them. And you can do that because you have these shared values and you know each other really well. You're working on something that is really testing you, and there's a lot of fun in doing that. And that is one aspect of it. I think the other aspect of it, so I reckon that we are on the one hand quite demanding, but also has a flip side. So one of our values is care.
Yeah.
And care for me is first of all about the customer, because this industry does not care about the customer. So we first of all need to care for the people that we're serving, but also towards our people. I think you can be very demanding, but then you also need to give something back.
Yeah.
But it happens in that order.
Yeah.
So it's not like we give a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
And then you perform. No, you perform, you show, you earn that flexibility, and then we take good care of our people. And that's, of course, flexibility, but it's also in how we develop and train them and help them grow.
Yeah.
But and that's, I think, where you come in and spend a lot of time and effort to make sure that we not just pull people from their comfort zone into an area of growth, but that we also support them. And I think also what I really liked was our ski trip earlier this year. And what I like there is that so on the one hand, we are very alike when it comes to our values, but at the same time, there's also space to be really different. So if you look at our ski trip, it becomes really visible. So we had a group of skiers and snowboarders that are absolute fanatics that spend time in the fun park, etc. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have people who had never seen so much snow in their lives that make the first meters on the slope because they had joined Insify and because we had organized the ski trip. And otherwise they would have not had that experience. And I think there was space for both these extremes and everything in between. So there was a lot of people were enjoying because other people were also enjoying what they were doing. And there was not that sort of competitive tension or anything. So that was really great to see. And again, I think also such a trip is a way of strengthening the bonds and strengthening to make sure that we really know each other very well. If you more think about the type of people that really thrive at Insify and the people that struggle, you already mentioned a few elements, but what do you typically look for in candidates, and how do you spot, this is somebody that will do really well?
I think a couple of things. For me, it starts with low ego.
Mm-hmm.
And why low ego? Because I think working at Insify is about reaching success together. And it's actually very little about you. So I think if I notice in interviews that people are really kind of focusing on, hey, I want to make this step in my career. This is so incredibly important for me. And, I don't know much about insurance. I'm not sure if I'm enthusiastic about it. But the challenge for me is interesting. I think you really need to care about the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to care about doing it together. Mm-hmm. Hey, so we talked a lot about how we build culture, how we select on it. But can you tell about a time where it didn't go so well? Where did you have the feeling that maybe culture broke at some point?
We doubled last year. Insify today is a completely different company than it was last year, and that's inherently a challenging ride to navigate, and that's not for everyone. And at that volume of hiring, when half of the company is essentially new, you're bound to get it right quite often, and we do get it right most of the time. But statistically, you'll have a few misses as well. How is that for you, by the way?
Good question. I do feel it's a common stage. I think, especially in the phase we're in, where you're growing, but you're also a little bit reiterating on your values. I think Insify has been in a very high growth situation, and we hired a lot of people. And I think we also needed to kind of reiterate and think, hey, what are our values and how do we really want to live by it? And then, unfortunately also make some tough choices. And I think that is always impactful for culture. I think that is kind of, unavoidable, let's say. And again, I think a lot of startups and scale-ups go through that. I also feel that we got better over time. But indeed, like you said, we didn't get it right always. And I think it's also impossible. Hey, to wrap up this conversation, maybe as last thing, if you people see this video and think about, hey, I might join, I might apply. What is the one thing you would want to tell those people?
Oh wow, the one thing that I would want to tell potential applicants. I think if we look at our conversation, we are a great place for smart and ambitious people. We're a great place for talent. We really want to make sure that they grow fast, they get rewarded for it, but it's not for everyone. And if you're looking for an easy journey, you're probably not it. If you look for a very intense and rewarding journey that is really going to help you grow as an individual and in your career, I think we're an amazing place to work. So that I would say is my biggest advice. Yeah. What is it for you?
Yeah, I think obviously same. I think if you're on the fence, I think that's a really good sign, because that means that you're consciously thinking about it and making a conscious choice. I think if I speak to some of the people who have been here for maybe 4 or 5 years, if you hear them talk about Insify and their journey, I see their eyes lighting up. And they always talk about, I've learned so much. It was incredibly tough at times, but I made so many friends, and I feel very lucky to have spent time here. I think for me that is the one big sign that this is actually quite worth it.
I think it's also one of the nicest points of feedback that you can get. If you ask those people that have been longer and that are really thriving here, what do you enjoy the most? They'll probably say the people.
Yeah.